everyone, it's Jennifer from Auburn Yoga and Pilates, and based on the positive feedback from the other night, we are going to do another yin and restorative class focused on the back. So grab your props if you have any, and we'll get started. So we'll start off as we usually do, in a comfortable seated position. So you want to lift through the top of your head and allow your knees to relax down toward the floor, relaxing your hip flexors. Also relaxing your shoulders down away from your ears, letting your neck be long and your shoulders be relaxed. And then inhaling through your nose all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. And again, inhaling through your nose all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth one more time. Inhaling through your nose all the air you can fit. Exhaling slowly out your mouth. And then trying to change that breath to a completely nostril breath. So that your inhale and your exhale go through your nose. Filling that umbrella-shaped diaphragm with air. And really trying to bring your attention within. So sometimes it is a challenge, for sure, to keep yourself in the present moment. It's so easy to get caught up in the past or the potential future that we sometimes lose sight of the now. So really trying to use your breath as a tool to keep you in the now. Notice the inhale, notice what parts of your torso fill up. Notice your exhale, notice what part of your torso empties out. And then closing your eyes. And beginning to visualize something that you'd like to manifest into your day. What do you need more of today? Do you need more patience? Do you need more enthusiasm? Do you need more acceptance? What do you need? And then when something comes to you, what does it look like? What does you being more patient look like? What does you being more enthusiastic look like? And take my example and put in whatever you said you needed. What does it look like? Paint a picture. And put yourself smack dab in the middle of that scene. See yourself being more of what you said you needed. And then scents, sounds, overall feelings. And sit with it for about 2 minutes. Beginning to deepen your breath, bring yourself back into the room, switch the cross of your legs, and begin to circle your spine. So waking up your back, move between flexion and extension. And switch direction. Join us the other night for our human restorative practice. We did do this pose. Tonight will be different, but we're going to actually just start off the same way. So taking your elbows and your feet to the right, you want to lengthen the left side body. So if someone were looking at you from the ceiling, you would look like a banana or a crescent moon. And generally, we hold our yin poses for about 3 to 5 minutes. We'll hold this first little side banana pose just a little less because we have a lot of other poses to get through. And I want to make sure that we have time for most of them. But starting off here with this nice little lateral stretch, stretching through that side body. So breathing into the entire side body. And then bringing those legs and those arms through the midline and bringing them over to the other side. So same thing. Looking at you from the ceiling, you'd look like a banana or a crescent moon. But it is important to move the spine in a variety of ways. So our spines flex and extend. They also twist right and left. And then they move laterally, right and left. Now, most people spend a good majority of their time, or too much time, in spinal flexion, and they don't spend enough time balancing it out. So using our yoga practice to help to balance us out. So, for instance, movement on the lateral plane is important, but it's not always something people do enough of. So here we're sort of reminding our spines that they can move on that lateral plane. Because here, your hips and your shoulders are both still parallel to the ceiling. And then bringing that back to center. Now, lengthening your waist, you want to get your waist symmetrical on both sides. Keep your pelvis neutral, bring your right knee into your chest, and if you're able to, grab hold of the outside of that right foot. Now, it may be that you need to use a strap, and it may be that you need to bend that lower leg. That is perfectly fine. Extend it if you can, bend it if you need to. Sometimes there's somewhere in the middle, if you place that foot of the long leg on a block, it gives you a little bit of height and allows you to have an extended leg but long. So stretching through that groin, releasing, hopefully, the back. So you're maintaining a vertical right shin. And that right knee falls outside of the torso. So it's not directly over the torso. It's on the side. And then releasing that side. Trying the very same thing on the other side. So starting off, bringing that knee into your chest, and then letting that knee go wide, and grabbing the outside of that foot, coming into a half happy baby pose. Sometimes often known as upturned bug, too. pressure in order to bring that knee in the direction of the floor. You can obviously see it's not that the knee reaches the floor in actuality, it just moves in that direction. And as always, whenever you practice any of these poses, you want to make sure that you're doing enough to feel a benefit, but not so much that it feels like you're overdoing it. Now, if you have existing knee issues, you're going to want to stay here. First, of course, we'll release that leg. But existing knee issues, you're going to stay here, and you're going to do an upside down pigeon pose. You'll take that right leg, you'll externally rotate it. You'll cross the flat spot of your ankle to the upper knee. Flex that inside foot, and then coming into that stretch. However, if you're comfortable doing so, you can come into a traditional pigeon. Now, you may want to use a large pillow or a blanket. But coming into an all fours position, you want to take your right knee up to your right wrist. Now that right shin goes at a diagonal here. So it's not that, you can tell my foot is not right behind my knee. My foot is actually at a diagonal. From there, lift the back toes, and you're basically letting go of your friction that's sort of holding you there, and you can let gravity take over. You can shake down those hips to wherever they want to go. Drop that leg down, place a blanket or a pillow underneath that hip in a way that it provides it with support. It's like you're lifting the floor up. That makes it safer for the knee. You don't just have that hip hanging out. Now you can come down, you can rest on your forearms, or you can rest your torso atop of a bolster or a pillow. This is a fabulous pose for your back. We often think of it as a hip stretch, which it definitely is. You should definitely feel a hip stretch through that outer right hip. If you do not, then take your right shin closer to the top of the mat. So your leg moves from more of a diagonal to closer to something that's 90 degrees at the front knee. So basically you start with a very acute angle, and maybe you're making it a little larger by bringing that shin forward. Now, if you have tight hips like I do, that isn't a possibility. Your shin will stay at a diagonal and you'll still feel a very deep hip stretch. But again, in addition to that hip stretch, you are getting that nice spinal lengthening. This is going to, allow a stretch that isn't always possible in different other positions. staying in this one just a little bit longer. And then taking those hands under your shoulders and coming back. Now, before we go into the other side, extending that right leg. So we had our knee in deep flexion, we had our hip in deep flexion. And now just allowing for a little extension in both places. And then when you feel ready, dropping it back down to an all fours position, this time taking that opposite knee forward. So that left knee comes forward, that left shin comes to a diagonal. And again, you want to lift that back knee up and allow those hips to shake down, allow gravity to take over. And then placing a blanket or a pillow under your hip. Now, you want to do so in a manner that allows your lower back and hips to be perfectly level. That's the goal here. It's as though someone could come and place a tray of drinks on your low back, right at that sacral area, and it would balance. So again, you can rest on your foot. People enjoy extending their arms forward for a more exaggerated sleeping pigeon. Finding that place that really works for you. As you're here, sometimes people find that they can go a little bit more deeply into the pose than they initially thought. If that is the case with you, you can always, reshape those hips down, adjust that pillow or blanket if necessary, and hang out there. Now, if you're very open through the hips, it is sometimes that people don't need a blanket or pillow. It's more unusual, but it does happen. In that case, they're able to rest the back of their leg on the floor without having an imbalance in their hips. The hips are still level. So really giving yourself enough time here in this pose that you can experience a certain depth that would be impossible to achieve if you only stayed in the pose a short time. In this particular practice, time gives us the gift of increased depth. And then curling that back toe under, taking those hands under the shoulders, lifting up, sliding that leg back, and extending that leg. And then, this time, coming into a Sphinx pose. So coming down onto your belly and placing your elbows either directly under your shoulders or slightly ahead of your shoulders. Your thigh bones are parallel to each other. And you want to think about pressing your shoulder blades forward. So opening that front body, you're lengthening the area from your pubic bone all the way up through your collarbone. Now, most people will feel some sort of benefit here. There are some people who need a little bit more. So if you'd like, you can lengthen those arms, and then you may even be able to start to walk those hands in. So it's entirely up to you if you choose a Sphinx or a variation of Cobra. If you do decide to go into a Cobra pose, you want to make sure that you can do so without feeling like you're compressing your low back. You want to keep a certain degree of spaciousness through that low back. You also want to make sure that you can do this without clenching your glutes. So if you bring yourself up into a Cobra pose and you find that you're really tensing, you start to squeeze things a little too much, then you've probably gone a bit too deep. Continuing to press that heart center forward. It's like you're rooting down through your fingers, maintaining spaciousness across that front body. And then coming out of this one, taking those hands by those side ribs, lifting yourself up, and coming into a seated position. And chances are you're going to want to have a block or a couple pillows, something that you can rest your elbow on. And we're going to take our legs wide. How wide is up to you, inevitably, but wider than your hips, ideally, is where you want to go. A little wardrobe adjustment. Okay, so from here, we're going to come into another lateral movement. It can be rather deep, so you want to adjust. Now, from doing this in the past, I know that this height happens to be pretty good for me, but it may not be pretty good for you. So you're going to take your hands behind your head, sort of like you're doing either an abdominal crunch or resting in a hammock, depending on your perspective. And then You're going to tip over to one side and rest your elbow on that prop. Now you should get a very deep lateral stretch, and what you want to avoid on this one is dropping that upper shoulder forward. Try to prevent that. Try to keep your shoulders relatively stacked. Now, what I did find is initially I put my prop a little too close to my hip. And the reason that I say that I knew that, it's because my lower body, my lower torso was really feeling scrunched. Although you don't get the degree of spaciousness across your lower body that you do in your upper body, you still do have a level of spaciousness. So hopefully you can already tell how this pose benefits the back. Hopefully you feel it stretching into places that maybe a little bit dormant for you. Maybe you don't move in this way often enough. So trying to increase the length and inevitably increase the flexibility. Hopefully getting your back to be used to moving in a different way, so that when you do move in a different way, it's not a shock to the back, causing it to get cranky. We like to keep our backs not cranky. And then extending that upper arm, slowly sweeping it down, and very, very slowly coming up, because in theory, you were in that fairly deeply. And then doing the very same thing on the other side. So setting up that prop and coming into that place, coming over, keeping those shoulders as stacked as possible. It's almost as though you're thinking about taking your upper shoulder back. And it's not that that shoulder necessarily will go behind you, but that action, it should really cause you to feel an opening through that side body. Now, everybody's different, but I feel a stretch through the lower quadrant of my back, through my waist, and then I even feel a stretch through my abdominals. Oh, and then of course there's that whole, area along the ribs. staying here about another minute. Again, you're staying in the moment. And you're using your breath to put you into that perfect place. Maybe you found it. Maybe you need to breathe in a little bit more. Excuse me. Maybe you need to ease up a little. And then again, lengthening that upper arm, slowly bringing it down, and then slowly lifting up out of that lateral stretch. So that one tends to be rather deep. So hopefully, again, you really did feel that in a positive way. Now, grabbing hold of that bolster. And now again, if you don't have a bolster, you want a really big pillow or 2 pillows. You could, grab a king-size pillow of some type if you wanted, or even a sofa cushion would often work, and it might have that firmness that you want. So placing that hip against that bolster, and we're going to do a spin on a twist, a supported twist that we usually do. So it basically does start off like that supported twist that we normally do. So generally we have what I call mermaid legs, where you have one leg in front and one leg behind. The modification to this move is going to be to stack your legs. It'll make it a little easier for you. Now from here, you end up twisting towards your bolster, or again, whatever you're using to support you, and coming down. Now in our variation, usually, sometimes we go to the back, if we can, and square the ribs toward the floor. It's going to be a little harder to do in this one because the variation involves the legs. So if you'd like, extend the legs. So you've got your lower leg coming forward, and you've got your upper leg that is basically an extension of your spine. Your legs are at a 90-ish degree angle, not perfectly at 90 degrees, and you're allowing your front rib cage and your front shoulder to drop toward the floor. And once you get there, because this is a supported pose, you should really feel like you're able to allow yourself to just sink into it. So try not to hold back too much. Sometimes we tense up, we're afraid. But if you have that support in place, so hopefully feeling how these different poses awaken different portions of your back. I was mentioning on the last one that I could really feel it through the lower quadrant of my back and through my side body. Well, I do feel this one in a few different places. I can feel it much more in my mid-back area. And then taking those hands by your side, using your arms to help lift you up, bending those legs, bringing them back to the center. Coming in and switching sides. Now, you may need to make your support higher than mine. So again, you want to place your hip pretty much just, right against that pillow or that prop that you've made for yourself. Obviously, you could fold, multiple towels to give yourself that height if you wanted. And then coming down onto your support. And then, if you're able to, extending those legs so that lower leg comes forward. That upper leg pretty much becomes a natural extension of the spine. And then you're allowing that front shoulder, that front rib cage to fall in the direction of the floor. Trying to quiet both your body and your mind when you're here. And then again, taking those hands, using your arms to help bring yourself up, bringing those legs back toward the line. And we have been going for about 45 minutes. So we're going to come into a place for final relaxation. So you're going to want a folded towel or blanket or a small pillow, plus another pillow or bolster, or you could use your blocks. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a relatively low level prop here. So you don't want it to be too high. You could roll it. If I rolled this, I think that I would get too much height. So I'm pretty much able to get it flatter by folding it. So this is going to go under your lumbar spine. So again, You may not want that much height. So you're going to set that up so that it aligns with the natural curve of your lumbar spine. So if it ends up to be too much, then try to decrease the height. You're going to place this under your low back, and then you're going to place another prop. You can either place it under your knees, that would be one option, or if it's a little larger pillow, you could place it underneath your calves. Forget what they call this one. It's like a rolling brook or rolling stream or something along those lines. But we'll spend our final relaxation here tonight. So again, if it's just not working for you, don't force it. Let it go. You know, push the prop over to the side. Go into any place that's comfortable for you. But sometimes we need to present our body with different options, just like we present our mind with different options. Make sure we mix it up a little, right? What do they say? Variety is the spice of life. Hopefully this is a pose that your low back is embracing. You may be exaggerating the curve a little bit with your prop, but it shouldn't be too much. You shouldn't be in an extreme back bend in any way. And then just giving those knees and feet a little lift. Hopefully soothing for the back, calming for the central nervous system. Really allowing yourself to relax in this position. Turning your palms upward facing, unless for some reason that's not comfortable for you. Letting your legs be heavy, letting your arms be heavy. Starting with your feet, allowing your front body to relax and just moving upwards slowly. Until you get up through your face, relax your jaw, smooth all the creases in your face. And beginning to bring movement back into your body. Bending your legs, planting your feet. Pushing that prop away. Rolling to one side. Lifting up into a seated position. Bringing yourself back into the room. Inhale, reaching those arms up. Exhale, those hands down. The light within me salutes the light within you. Namaste. Thank you to everyone who likes, comments, and shares. We really appreciate that. We want to make sure that if we're taking the time to do these classes, that they are a benefit to some people out there. So please continue to do that. The pictures really, crack me up, especially those of you who posted, your pets with your pets or anything else. But thanks again. I hope you're enjoying. I hope you're all doing well. And we'll be back soon.